So today we're going to talk about estimating fractions. When you're estimating a fraction, you'll need to look at the fraction and figure out if that fraction is closest to 0, 1/2, or 1. So that fraction is closest to 0, 1/2, or 1. I put some fractions, some examples up here. Look at this fraction, 1/8. 1/8. If we figured out where on that on a ruler on a number line 1/8 would fall, it would be closest to 0. Half, in terms of eighths, is 4 out of 8, right? 4/8 equals 1/2. And so 1/8 is closer to 0 than it is to 1/2. So that's what we're doing. We're looking at the fraction and figuring it out. Is it closer to 0, 1/2, or 1? Look at this one, 14/15. That is closer to 1 than it is to 1/2. Because that's only missing one piece for a whole. That's one way to tell if it's closer to 1/2 or 0 or 1, is to figure out how many pieces are missing out of the total. This only has 1 out of 8, so that's close to 0. This has 4 out of 8, so that's close to 1/2. This has 14 out of 15, so it's almost 1. Leo?
Wait, so if you're rounding, all right? So what? I said actually never mind.
Yeah. So when we're rounding, then, if the fraction is close to 1/2, you can round it to 1/2. For example, 4 and 2/5. 4 and 2/5. Would 2/5 be closer to 0, 1/2, or 1? Look at the fraction and tell it, is it close to 1/2? 2 out of 5? Yeah, that's close to 1/2, so we can round this to 4.5. Okay? What if we had to estimate and it said 4 2/5 plus 1/8? 4 2/5 plus 1/8. What is 1/8 closest to? Is it closest to 0, 1/2, or 1? Well, we already said, Calvin,
0.
it's closest to 0. So if we were doing this problem, 4 2/5 plus 1/8, we could round that to 4.5 plus 0 to get an estimate. 4.5 plus 0 is 4.5. Okay? What if we had 5 1/6 plus 3/8? 5 1/6 plus 3/8. Well, again, look at the fraction 1/6. Is that closest to 0, 1/2, or 1? Arthur?
0.
That's closest to 0. So if it's closest to 0, then just take the fraction away and make this the whole number 5. Think of this as just 5. Okay? If this is close to 0, then just let's pretend that this fraction was 0. 5 and 0 fraction. Okay? Now, 3/8, what's that closest to? Is that closest to 0, 1/2, or 1? Myra? 1/2. 3/8 would be right here. It's closest to 1/2. So we could make this 5 plus 1/2. What's 5 plus 1/2? Rachel? 5 1/2. Very good. 5 wholes and another half. 5 1/2. Okay. Leo?
So wouldn't 5 1/2 be rounded to 6?
No, 5 1/2 is the estimate.
I know, but if that was the number, because wouldn't that technically be 5 out of 10? And then wouldn't you round that up to a 6 if you had to round 5 1/2? You know what I mean? Like, because that's half of the number, and then when you get half of a number, you round it up, so that would become 6 if you rounded it.
Well,
Like
we could leave this as 5 1/2
I
and
know,
keep it
I
as
know we
that.
don't have to do this, but wouldn't it just be that if you did?
There's not a specific rule that says, in rounding, we don't always have to round it if we can work with the fraction. Okay? In other words, what if it was 5 1/2 plus 1 4/9?
That wouldn't it
5
just?
1/2 plus 1 4/9.
Oh, well,
Okay? 5 1/2 we could keep as 5 1/2. And 1 4/9 we could round that to
1 1/2.
1 1/2. So what's 5 1/2 plus 1 1/2? Trevor?
7.
7. 6 wholes plus 1/2 plus 1/2 is another whole. So it's 7. Okay? What if we have 7 5/6 plus 2 1/2? What would we do as 7 5/6? What would we do with 7 5/6? Amelia? Make it 8 because it's 5/6 is closest to 1. Adam, don't turn around. Stop talking. So we would change 7 5/6 to 8. And 2 1/2 we could just keep as 2 1/2. And add those. Arthur? 10 1/2. Okay? Now, whenever you are rounding, the main rules for rounding and estimating are that you be able to do the math in your head and still get a close answer. Which is why we can use the halves when we're adding and subtracting. Because we can do that math in our head. 8 plus 2 1/2, you can do it in your head. And we can get a close answer. We don't have to round it to just the whole numbers to get a close answer. You have enough math skill now where you can add halves. Okay? Or you could subtract halves. Subtract the whole number and then take away another half. Okay? Or take away the halves, take away the wholes. So that's what you're going to be doing today. Turn to page 140. Page 140. plus 11/12. Or it's actually written this way. What's 6/7 closest to? Tommy?
1.
1. What is 11/12 closest to? 1, 0, or 1.5? David? 11/12. 11 out of 12.
1.
Just 1, right? So we can estimate this to 1 plus 1.
What? It's easy.
Maybe some people don't get it. How have you done that?
1 million.
That's basically what we're doing today. How about 3/5 minus 1/9? That's number 3. 3/5 minus 1/9. What about 3/5? What would that be closest to? 0, 1/2, or 1? Darren?
That would go to
1/2.
1/2. 3/6 would be 1/2, so 3/5 is close to 1/2. How about 1/9? Calvin? 0. So do 1/2 minus 0 as the estimate. Okay? Let's see. Stop talking. Here's what I want you to do. Start with number 7 and do 7 through 27. Okay? Oh, yeah. 7 through 27.
I've never